I think the first question you should ask yourself is the payment provider for me to help me grow? Ultimately, they grow.
If we've got good payment providers, people come up with businesses, find ways to sell their products and ways to make money. So I'm very passionate about that space.
Back in the day with the banking and payments, it was very taboo to talk about payments.
So from we're talking money, we're talking payments. So this is very personal to people.
Fraud in our line of business is a very real thing.
Yes.
Right? And it happens all the time in payments.
Just imagine this, right? You are partnered with the biggest online gaming company in South Africa.
You move in people's money around, right? And that is a very real thing. You've got to get it right.
Bringing in a product into the market of the payment space to rival some of the giants at the time. The more compliant you are and the more integrated you are, the more secure your platform becomes, ideally. The more trust a consumer will have in your product. Cash is king. It still is king. It'll never go away. Having transactions immediately. Tap on phone, tap on glass, QR code. That's what you're looking for, innovation. You're not looking for the golden age of payments. You're looking for the next quickest thing, safest thing, simplest thing.
That's amazing. I'm hoping some of the smaller businesses will hear that and will take some of that advice, because I think this is going to be crucial in growing our economy.
They should call us.
Hello, and welcome to Coding Culture, the podcast all about technology, innovation, and cutting-edge practices that are shaping our digital landscape. I'm your host, Kgang, and if you still cannot pronounce it, you can still call me Kgang. Today's topic is around payments and payment gateways. I will be joined by two very interesting guests that are knowledgeable on the topic. One thing to remember, we still have the competition running where you can win a ticket to Devconf, so make sure you're paying attention so that you can answer the question later. So let's get into the pod.
Here we go.
So, Kaveshen, can you just tell us about yourself and tell us a bit about your history and why you're passionate about payments?
Thanks, Kgang. Well, history, I've been part of the Hollywood Bets business, the group, for the past 6 years now. Been heavily involved in the operations from a finance point of view, which was the segue into Ownpay, which is where I'm now. I dealt a lot with operational finance and ensuring that customers were able to deposit and withdraw money very quickly. And that kind of allowed me to get the experience that I now use at Ownpay to drive the business development team as well.
Okay, nice. Thanks for that. And then our second guest is Denise. I think you can introduce yourself and just give us a bit of context, and let's let the viewers know who you are.
Thank you, Kgang. So I'm Deniese Chinnappen. I look after Ownpay as the managing exec, and a lot of that focus is really around driving strategy and innovation, while also managing the risk for day-to-day operations in the business, right?
Okay.
I always like to describe my job as being hugely exciting, because it's getting to work with the entire team, and it's an amazing team of how do we actually get product and content out the door. And if I look at where things were, if we're talking about payments as a payments industry, my career really sort of started 26 years ago. Now that's going to sound like a long time, but it is true. But 26 years ago, and having spent a lot of time in strategy development, P&L management, technology management, and innovation, and being very much involved in a now very successful payments provider in South Africa and in Europe, it made sense that when Ownpay was born and the concept that I would be one of the people to step up and lead the charge. So really, really excited. As you said, payments is, I think, close to everyone's heart, including ours.
Okay, nice. So I think everybody has heard us mention the word Ownpay. Maybe let's just give them a bit of context. What is Ownpay? What is the idea behind it?
So Ownpay was built as a brainchild of us bringing in a product into the market of the payment space to rival some of the giants at the time. It's about 6 years old, and the idea was around having a product that we can, one, create, manage, and scale in order for us to challenge the bigger PSPs. PSPs, in this sense, are payment service providers in South Africa. So we built it to kind of go head-to-head with them. And over the past 5 years, I think we've done a pretty good job of it.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So I think we've got some PSPs internationally. We've got some PSPs locally. I think from a Ownpay perspective, is the idea to just be competing with them, or is there a unique problem that we think Ownpay can particularly solve as well?
So I think internationally, they have kind of created the platform for a lot of other PSPs to grow on. They are leading PSPs internationally, but the South African market still needs a South African touch. And I guess that's where we come in. We're probably South African, and we have our team boots on the ground locally. We try to problem solve down here in SA. That means we understand who our consumer is, because essentially we are our consumer. We've built solutions that a South African consumer and merchant will be able to have, and then for us to solve.
Okay, I think you mentioned the word merchant there, so maybe let's get a bit on the technical side of things. Let's start with, what is a payment provider and what is a merchant?
So there's three components when you're looking at a payments flow. There's the end user, which is the consumer. There's the merchant, which is the company that they're purchasing goods or services from or product from. And there's the middleman, which is the payments gateway that allows the consumer to interact with the company and fulfill a payment for that specific product that they tend to purchase or to own. So we are essentially the middleman to allow you to facilitate a quicker method of payment as opposed to cash. And yeah, that's basically what we do.
Okay. So I think the reason I said payments are very close to my heart was that I think payments is something that can take people out of the situations that they are in. Like if we've got good payment providers, people come up with businesses, find ways to sell their products and ways to make money. So I'm very passionate about that space. So, and you've mentioned that Ownpay is considering the South African landscape from a marketing perspective, or customers that you're trying to sell Ownpay to or to get Ownpay to use. What's the marketing strategy that we are applying?
Right now, we're working with one of the biggest online gaming merchants, gaming companies in South Africa. That allows us to get a much bigger footprint than we would if we started off with a small to medium enterprise. Now, not to say that we aren't focusing on SMEs and entrepreneurs,
yes,
but just imagine this, right? You are partnered with the biggest online gaming company in South Africa. Just imagine the footprint you have in terms of customers that you're reaching out to. Also, to add to that, we are the leading payment provider on the Hollywood Bets platform. That means we have the most touch points for all customers that are transacting either via EFT or by card.
Yeah, that's correct, Kaveshen. And I think it's important to add that, you know, when we talk about marketing strategies and then we talk about adoption as well, you know, there's this pros and cons to always sort of being the first to market or the pioneer in any sort of space, right? You know, at the end of the day, we understand that we may not necessarily have been the first people on the market, but certainly applying some innovative and creative ways of how we actually focus on adoption has resulted in us being able to be a leading provider on a phenomenal betting company on itself. So immediately the user base is there. We've got the customers, but at the same time, it's an amazing experience that they're also having.
It's amazing the growth that's actually happened for you guys to be like number one at that point in one of the leading companies here in South Africa. So we're talking money, we're talking payments, so this is very personal to people. From a security and legislation standpoint, how do we make sure we protect people's personal information, you know, protect them from fraud, but also comply with how we're saving that information?
So it's a multi-tiered approach. And I mean, you talked about a few things, right? You talked about personal data and protection of that data. There's also then, you know, you moving people's money around, right? And that is a very real thing. You've got to get it right. And you've got to get it right at the point when you need it to be right. And so some of what we are actually really including as part of Ownpay and the tech stack in itself at a technology level, there's various security measures that are in place, but there's also balancing the regulation and the compliance aspects of things, right? There are stringent regulations around South African law. You know, we know there's POPI as a major one. And then there's also at a global level, when you when you are operating as a PSP, PSI and DSS is a critical aspect for us, right? At the end of the day, it's all about making sure that you're able to not just treat the personal data and the payment data securely. You want to be able to make sure that it's actually safe. So that's just one part at a regulatory level. When we start to focus on the software and the technology side, there's all sorts of encryption that we would use. So Ownpay essentially uses what we would refer to as end-to-end encryption. And that end-to-end encryption basically is exactly what it means. Your payment data and your personal data as a user is protected and managed securely from start to finish. Part of the data as well is also us being able to use tokenization. That's a particular piece of tech that requires us and allows us to be able to further encrypt and have people's payment data managed and used securely. So in a nutshell, there's a combination of the software and the technology with the regulation. And then the processes sort of sit underneath that. We've got regular third-party audits that happen with both merchants as well as internally, even for ourselves as a business. And those make sure that we stay ahead of the curve in being able to almost anticipate what issues might be coming from a security perspective, as well as make sure that we keep up to date with things. Fraud in our line of business is a very real thing, yes. Right? And it happens all the time in payments. And so that's another huge area for us, but tackling it from a preventative point of view. So lots of monitoring, again, at the technology level, lots of monitoring that takes place in real time so that we can start to see and identify suspicious activity as and when it happens. The focus is ultimately making sure that our users and our customers and their users feel safe, not just at the point of interaction, but also behind the scenes when it comes to the data.
Okay, I think you mentioned security, tokenization. I think that leads us to something that we want to talk about. So we have an announcement here that we will be asking a question at the end of the podcast. Make sure you're listening, answer the question. If you get it correctly, you may be a winner and could attend Devconf, which will be based in Johannesburg in May. You might learn something around tokenization, encryption, and some of the topics that we've mentioned here. So jump into the comment section as soon as you know the answer, and then you might win a prize. Let's get back to the pod. So, competition and differentiation. How do we see Ownpay growing? You've mentioned right now we're at the point we're on one of the biggest platforms in South Africa. We are number one there. What's the journey looking like to try to get it to other platforms or maybe to bridge the gap with smaller merchants? Is there anything in the plans?
Yeah, definitely there is. I think we're right now looking at our first real iteration of Ownpay, in that we're fully compliant. We are operating at a level of banking institutes working alongside us as opposed to as an opposition. Back in the day with the banking and payments, it was very taboo to talk about payments and very, I would say, scary to think about it because you're entering details into your phone. You don't know whether it's secure, whether it's safe. And I think what we are trying to really push into the market is a, firstly, quick product that allows the consumer, like you and I, to transact faster so that we can get on with our lives and not have to worry about payments. Secondly, simple. So at any level, enterprise, SME, someone that's not really adept in using tech, they know how to use it. It's simple for them. Lastly, it's security. And we're driving that by partnerships through banking with banks, essentially, and other providers. That sets us apart from a lot of other, I would say, PSPs in the space, because the more compliant you are and the more integrated you are, the more secure your platform becomes, ideally. The more trust a consumer will have in your product, because you are not just some business in a garage somewhere that's holding people's data. You have end-to-end encryption, as Denise mentioned. The banks know who you are. They allow you to transact on their backends, how much more secure can you get as a payments gateway when you have all the boxes ticked?
Now that sounds amazing. So I'd just like to just maybe go a level higher now, beyond just Ownpay. Let's say I'm an SME and I'm considering getting a payment provider. What kind of questions should I ask myself on choosing a payment provider?
I think the first question you should ask yourself is the payment provider for me to help me grow? Ultimately, they grow. Or are they just there to kind of be a gateway to collect payments? Because if they are for you, they'll be able to tailor make a package for you at an affordable rate. Because SMEs, again, they kickstart, they ground up. So they would want someone that has their best interest at heart. And we coming in with a product that's being used currently at scale on Hollywood Bets. So we have a lot of customers there. Just imagine the kind of tech we have running that and at an affordable rate to give to an SME. So definitely look for a platform that you can integrate with that's very quick in terms of how long it takes your customer to interact with them. Because for an SME, the last thing you want is for your customer to be there for a long time. You know, cash is king. It still is king. It'll never go away. But if you can go back to the early days of banking when you were making a deposit, you had a deposit slip, you had a reference, you had to go to the teller. Now imagine an SME getting settled immediately, having transactions immediately, tap on phone, tap on glass, QR code. That's what you're looking for, innovation. You're not looking for the golden age of payments, you're looking for the next quickest thing, safest thing, simplest thing.
That's amazing. I'm hoping some of the smaller businesses will hear that and will take some of that advice, because I think this is going to be crucial in growing our economy.
They should call us.
Yeah, definitely. So let's project. Let's look forward. Maybe a year, 5 years, or 10 years. Where do you see Ownpay?
That's a good question, right? It's, you know, we're in the business to not be here for just 1 or 2 years. We want to be here for the long haul. And so I think it's important to sort of take a step back a little bit in terms of understanding where South Africa really sort of sits as a country in Africa, right? Because payments, we hear about payments all the time at a global scale. And not sure if you knew this, but did you know that South Africa is one of the top 5 countries in Africa to be leading the charge when it comes to payments?
Actually, I actually did know. I think we're in a good space.
Right,
yes.
and that's useful information to know, because you know, when we talk about what exactly is required to actually make a transition and go down that route, you first need to actually understand where are we now before we can say this is where I want to be in 5 to 10 years time. And so you know, in essence, when we look at where digital payments are actually going, where they've come from and where they're going, you know, the digital payment landscape has changed to adopt and to be integrated into everything that we do, our daily lifestyle. I mean, for some of us, we can't go to the bathroom without our phones, right? And so given the fact that we actually have this thing in our hands 24/7, you know, it allows us to be able to, it allows businesses, it allows, you know, SMEs, it allows all sorts of operations to be able to then run off your devices, right, to get to that point and that level. And so in terms of where we expect to be in the next 5 to 10 years from an Ownpay perspective, I mean, we are growing at an incredibly rapid rate. Certainly, I think, you know, we expected it, but we didn't expect this massive balloon, right, that we've recently experienced. To the extent of where we've got people reaching out to us, existing payment services providers, who are reaching out to us to partner with us. So the landscape for us and the view of where we want to see ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years is incredible, because we've got growth coming in via partnerships, and we've also got growth coming in terms of where our direct customers, we've got merchants then that we are having to support. And with that, making sure that the agility, the flexibility of being able to bring in new technologies, watches, crypto, I mean, we always, 5 years ago, cryptocurrency wasn't really a thing. Everyone was really skeptical about what exactly is crypto, why would we use it, would we use it at all? But it's here. It's a real form of currency. And so who knows where this is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. But the one thing that we do know is that simplicity, which is what Kaveshen had mentioned earlier, is definitely key for us. Making sure that we are targeting and we are focused on solving a very, very definite need rather than just, here you go, here's a whole lot of stuff and only a portion of it is ever really consumed, right? And so simplicity, agility, making sure that we bring all of those together as part of growth for us for the next 5 to 10 years is key to making sure that we remain competitive and we remain successful.
And that is very interesting. And you did mention crypto in there as well. So I'm looking forward to the landscape and also different ways of paying things, like with micropayments. Maybe if I'm subscribed to something, being able to get billed depending on how long I listen to something. So I'm really looking forward to different ways where payments will be coming in. So in terms of the final thoughts and your thinking around the viewers and what they need to try to remember about this conversation, whether it's around how it's changing people's lives or the future of what they need to look forward to, what would be your final thoughts around the payment gateway, aggregators, everything in general around payments?
The landscape is changing quickly. It's becoming more regulated, and it's being done for the consumer. A few years ago, there was not many companies that were running at a highly regulated pace. Right now, the landscape is becoming very even. So that means it's our job, our team's job, to ensure that we are staying ahead of the curve. And knowing that leaves us with a question every day: what new problem can we solve? What problems coming up in the future that we can solve now so that we're able to stay ahead of everyone else in the payment gateway space? With that, the core of what we do, keeping our processes simple, keeping it secure, keeping it safe, is at the utmost importance for us. Even as we develop new tech and new programs and new applications, keeping it in a form of where, like you were saying about crypto, and think about the education that would need to happen for the normal consumer to understand how crypto works and how they can transact with it. We can't just build something that has application and uses, but without the consumer knowing how to use it. So we are always trying to figure out how best to educate our customer. The better you are in the know, the more frequently and the more safely you can use a brand like Ownpay.
Anything close?
I just want to add to that, when we talk about customers, it's, we've got customers and then there's our customers who have their users. And then there's people who would actually then want to use us directly. And it is just the nature of the business. But I think some of the key things there as well to consider, in addition to what Kaveshen has already mentioned, is that ease of use, but also the ability for us as Ownpay to be able to support and encourage growth for your business, for your operation. It's one of the reasons why we are here. We've learned we've learned through our experiences. We've paid school fees at that point of where now we are actually in a position to be able to offer that on to others, SMEs and beyond. And so at the end of the day, being able to support that growth from the perspective of us being able to scale allows for businesses to be able to scale, right? It's healthy. Yeah. It's good when businesses grow, because when businesses grow, employment employment gets better. When employment goes, overall economy, everything starts to change, and it's always in for the better. So I think those are some of the key things as well from an Ownpay perspective in terms of what we bring to the market. Yes, affordability. Yes, flexibility. Yes, simplicity and ease of use. Yes, inclusivity. Yes, innovation. There's a lot going on there in that world. But as a partner, and we really see ourselves as a partner, not a payment services provider, even though that is what we do, the whole goal and the view is that we go through this journey together with you.
I'd like to thank Deniese and Kaveshen for joining us. We really learned a lot. I'm looking forward to the growth of Ownpay, see how it affects our communities, our economy, and our lives in general. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got a competition running where if you answer a question, you stand a chance to win a ticket to Devconf. The question is, there is a website that's currently using Ownpay. It's one of the biggest websites in the country. What is that website? I'll repeat. There is a website that is currently using Ownpay. It's one of the biggest in the country. What is that website? If you know the answer, go down to the comment section, type it out. You could be going to Devconf. And also, remember, keep an eye on the link below. Click our link so that you get to know when the new podcast will be coming out. Also, like, share, subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going on these topics. Let's grow and make sure that we are learning together. Until next time, remember, stay curious and stay innovative. Signing off.